Hey everyone, Dave Floss here with Prometheus Falling Toys, and today I am going to do a side-by-side comparison of the Einscan SP 3D scanner and the Creality Lizard 3D scanner, which was recently released. So stick around. So about 2 years ago, I did a video on the Einscan SP 3D scanner. This was a scanner that I picked up specifically because I wanted to get very high quality scans of very small and or fine detailed objects. Now, I had tried a few different scanners out there, most of which were doing 0.1 millimeter level of scanning. And while some of the results were decent, I wasn't really getting the quality I wanted. Now, in order to get that quality, including going down to 0.05 millimeters with a much higher level of control, I invested in the Einscan SP 3D scanner. Now, what really set this scanner apart was that it was able to give me extremely good quality. And I have other videos, if you want to check out my YouTube page, on the results of those scans and many of the items that I've been able to scan and recreate. Now, my focus has been on scanning items that I can then recreate, edit, and manipulate to create 3D prints, not 3D images for things like video games or animation. But it would work theoretically, of course, for that too, because it's just scanning an image. And I'm going to talk about some of the side-by-side comparisons. The other big difference was the price. The Einscan had a retail price of about $2,500. Now, you can go on Amazon and look at scanners anywhere from $99 up to $2,500, up to a lot more depending on what you're doing. So it was definitely a larger investment, but for what I was trying to accomplish, it seemed to be the right tool. And ultimately, if you look at my other videos, you'll realize that I have not only been very pleased, but had great success in using it. So, give or take about a year ago, Creality announced that they were going to do a Kickstarter for their Lizard scanner, and they touted some big things with this device. First, it was going to be their first 0.05 millimeter device, so expect some very high detail, high quality scans. Secondly, it was supposed to really compensate for things that were even a challenge on the Einscan, which is high light situations where you got a lot of ambient light, especially outdoor sunlight, for example, and the effectiveness of reflective surfaces and or black. Even on the Einscan, because black is absorbing light and certain reflective surfaces like silver bounce the light that's being projected to capture the scan, you weren't able to get great quality. Now, in my other videos, I talk about that a bit and some of the workarounds that I've done to address that. But again, the Lizard touted that it was going to be able to compensate based on the way that it was designed. So that's ultimately what we're going to do today, is we are going to look at a few different key items. I'll compare the specs, I'll compare the setup, I'll compare the software, and then ultimately, we're going to do the scans and we're going to compare the quality and output of those scans. And for me, one big item that I look at as very important is not just can it scan and scan well, but does it scan to a point where any cleanup or manipulation or post-scan work is minimized as much as possible. I want to scan and go. I want to scan and print. I don't want to spend, especially if I'm just trying to create a one-to-one duplicate, I really don't want to have to clean it up. I don't want to have to make adjustments or fine-tune. I want to just be able to get a great quality scan the first time out. So we're really going to push this item to the test. Ultimately, because the Lizard retails for about $800, a significant reduction, a third of the price of the Einscan. So the real question is, what are you sacrificing? Because let's be honest, nothing is a third of the price and you're getting potentially all the bells and whistles. And can it live up to its claims? I will say right here that I do not receive any financial compensation from either Einscan or Creality in the making of my videos. I am simply comparing products that I use for my purposes and sharing those results with you as unbiased as I possibly can. So with that, let's get started. So let's just first talk about the two products out of the box. So for the Einscan, you get the Einscan SP scanner, you get the USB turntable, you get the calibration board, and you get a special mount that holds all of these pieces together. In other words, it doesn't have a separate tripod that you need to use. If you're doing what I call tabletop scanning, it has a preformed, pre-measured mount that everything goes into. Now, the other component to point out right here is the turntable. The turntable is software controlled. It doesn't just turn on, you don't just flip a switch and it keeps rotating. It is meant to be controlled by the software based on the number of rotations, whether that's incremental rotations or a constant turn of 360 degrees. Now, the other key component here is once it's all assembled, it does need to be calibrated, at least for the first time. I have another video where I talk about that calibration process. It takes about 2 minutes. Comes with the calibration board that you need and is all driven by the software. So ultimately, the setup of the Einscan SP takes about 5 minutes to physically set it up using a USB connection to your computer. The turntable also has a power connector, but that connects to the back of the scanner. So everything is controlled through the scanner apparatus, which then only has 2 plugs, USB to the computer and a power cord. Now let's look at the Lizard for a moment, because it is definitely a little bit different. So it also comes with the scanner. It comes with its own turntable, which is USB powered, and it comes with a tripod. Now, a distinct factor here for me is one of the things I liked about the SP, which I'm definitely going to be looking at with the Lizard, is because it has a pre-built case or stand that it fits in, I didn't have to tweak any settings. Everything snaps in, you run the calibration, and everything is good to go. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like on the Lizard, because it doesn't have that. It's got a tripod, and I'm going to guess we're going to have to manipulate it and dial in those settings, but we'll take a look at that next. Now, as far as connectivity is concerned, a little bit different. So there's still a power cord. That power cord goes into a splitter, one side going into the back of the Lizard scanner, and then that cord also has the USB to your computer. Now, the turntable is definitely different. It is a powered turntable by USB, but not from the scanner. You're going to either have to plug that into your computer or an external USB power source. And once it's turned on, it just continues to spin. You can kind of see it now in the video. It's just going to keep spinning constantly at 360 degrees, and we're going to see what that relates to. Now, there's a powered turntable underneath, and then they have a plate, new plate that comes with the Lizard, which has a number of different details, which is supposed to help the software be able to capture and understand the varying distances when it's doing scanning. We'll see how that turns out as well. So ultimately, not difficult at all to set up, but again, we're going to have to take a look at just how much we have to dial in the setting of the tripod, the scanner, and the turntable for the Lizard, where that is not a factor when you're dealing with the Einscan. So here we are, we're going to take a look at the software. Now, let me talk very quickly about the software. Each device comes with a USB flash drive that has software ready to install and ready to use. I have already installed both of those items of software. For today's testing, I am going to be running both devices off the exact same computer. I want to get the best understanding of the quality, the time to process, and the easiest way to do that is use the same computer. Now, I'll run the scans separately so that I'm not trying to do 2 things at once, but again, I'm running all of these off of the same computer with the same specs. Now, my particular computer is particularly high-end. It has a lot of memory, 128 gig of memory in it. It's got a dedicated graphics card. It is high-end because I also do a lot of 3D modeling and manipulation. You do not need a device nearly as high-end to get the same, the same final results, but just bear in mind that your performance may differ depending on the type of PC that you have. So let's take a look first at the Einscan. So we're going to go with the Xscan software. I am running these on a Windows-based system, just for awareness. And even though I'm doing video capture for today's video, that's being done on a separate computer. So I'm simply sharing the screen from Windows, so the video capture that I'm doing should not have any impact. So we'll see that it's loading, and I'm doing this in real time. Let's just get a sense. It's loading, it's looking for the device, and let's give it just another moment, and we'll see approximately how long that takes. Here we are. We have our option to choose our device. We're going to choose our Einscan SP. It's going to initialize our scanner. Now in the little video down in the center, we can see I have both of them. It's not a great angle, but I wanted both of these devices also set up side by side. They're in the same location, the same general workspace, same lighting parameters, just so, again, I really want to remove as many variables as possible. So they are sitting side by side. So for today's purposes, we're going to go to New Work. We're going to give that work a name. We'll call it Test 1. It looks like I already did Test 1. We'll do Test 2. It's going to ask us for a texture or non-textured scan. Now, I cover this in another video, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but the real difference here is a textured scan is taking photographic images of the device and scanning. What it's going to create is a visual representation that if you have the Infinity Gauntlet, for example, if I did a non-texture scan, it would just be the gray texture, outline of the item. It would not capture any of the coloring details. Perfect for if I want to go with fast 3D capture, right? But I'm not concerned about doing computer graphics, video games, etc. I don't need the color and all the other shading details. I just want the form. Whereas a textured scan is going to capture all those little lights and details and colors and everything else. Really good if you're doing something where you want to transition it into computer-aided drawing, video games, things of that nature. Now, why is this important? Well, two quick things. The first one is things go much faster when I don't do texture. When I'm not looking to have it also take photographs of every single scan that it's doing and overlay that on top of the scanned image. The second real important item here is that this is not a feature of the Lizard out of the box. So the Lizard does not do textured scanning just with the Lizard scanner. You need to buy an update kit that allows it to capture those images, and it uses your cell phone. So while the Einscan has an extra camera built in that as it's doing the scanning, it's also photographing the item. If you want to do a texture scan, this is a much more involved process with the Lizard, including, again, an add-on kit, the need to use a phone or some other camera source that's now going to capture the images, and a post-processing. And I want to stress that enough. Instead of doing it all in the software while it's scanning, it is going to require post-processing. So as a pause moment, if you are looking at this device, the Lizard device really from I want to scan items for 3D modeling in a computer, video games, arts, graphics. I can't say off the top, that's not what I use it for, that's not what I do, but I would say I think that there's a lot more involved, and honestly at that point, it's probably not going to deliver for you because of just the amount of added items and setup and the fact that you have to have a third-party device like your cell phone even to make that happen. But let's move on real quick to our non-textured scan. This will give us the best one-to-one comparison of the two devices. We want to see what those scans look like. Now, I'm going to be scanning a few different items today because, again, I actually want to scan items that I know should work well on the Einscan. I want to scan some items that may not work so well. In fact, I know they're not going to potentially work well because I want to see if that Lizard lives up to its reputation, especially when it comes to things that are black. So let's take a moment and look at the items that we'll be scanning today. So on my turntable a moment ago, I had a number of items that we're going to be scanning today, and I wanted to pick a few different items to really give a comparison. So let's take a quick look at what we'll be scanning today. The first item, or one of the items that we're going to scan today, is this head sculpt. So we're going to go with this head sculpt. This is a 6-inch figure head sculpt. It's got some modest details. It also has some more reflective surfaces like that gold. We're going to see how that turns out. The second item we're going to scan is this miniature. And the reason we're going for miniature is extremely small size with extremely fine detail. It may not come across here on the webcam, but everything down to the little, the book and the pages has details on it, the details of the robe and the garb. So we're going to really look at each of these from, can it really get a good set of those details? The next item we're going to do is modest size item. It's just an R2-D2 action figure. Again, I'm really looking at the silver on this item. There's not a lot, but there's enough, especially on the dome. We're going to want to see how that handles. So again, we're looking at things like quality, level of detail, and its color capture and reflective capture capabilities. So why don't we get started first with R2-D2. So I place R2-D2 on the center of our scan bed, and we can see up here in the top left, we can see it in our scan bed. Let's take a look at the first feature that I talk about in my other videos, and that's HDR. So the Einscan has high dynamic resolution and also high contrast resolution built in. So if we toggle that on, we don't need to set the brightness. Right now, I'm going to use it with the brightness of my room and environment exactly the way it is. I've got some LED lights in my ceiling. There's a little bit of light noise. I'm not going to dial it down super dark. I'm going to leave the lighting the same for all of our tests today so we can do a true comparison. Now, for the sake of time, we're just going to do the lowest number of passes. That is eight increments of the turntable. It's going to spin one time around, 8 different times. Let's capture this and see what we see. All right, our R2-D2 has been scanned. Let's see what the results are with the Einscan SP. Now remember, this is only one single pass. If we take a look, we can see that a lot of the details of the front were captured. The nuance, if we turn it here, we're going to see anywhere that you see kind of this opening or yellowing, that means it didn't capture enough information. And there, right away, we can see things like the reflective surface around the eye. The lens did not get captured. It couldn't quite pick that up. Obviously, because it can't see the entire top, we missed some details on the top. It did get the silver pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, remember, the goal here is not to tell you or show you. I have other videos that will demonstrate a number of different ways we could have made adjustments to how we scan, doing multiple passes, even little things we can do to reduce the reflective surfaces. So this is not about getting the absolute perfect final result. It's a comparison with taking something right off the shelf, scanning it, see how it looks, and then comparing it to how the lizard will perform under the same test. And with that, let us switch over for a moment to the lizard. So now let us compare it with the lizard. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and minimize the Einscan window and let us open CR Studio Lite. That's the software that came with the lizard. Now this one is loading. It took about 60 seconds to 90 seconds. This one loaded fairly quickly, very quickly in fact. We're going to choose how we want to use it. We're going to use table mode. This is give us the best comparison. We are going to close this, and you can see we have the table scan window. Now, one thing that I kind of want to call out here is, to me, there are definitely some similarities, right? We have the ability to do a texture scan or a geometry. Remember, texture is not going to actually show us any coloring or photographic textures of this scan. So we're going to actually choose geometry. You can see we have some brightness settings. Unfortunately, I don't know what they mean necessarily because I don't see an image. So let us see if we can figure out how to get our image. We'll leave it at 2 for the moment. Now let's look at... okay, so I see we have a preview button. Let's do a preview. Let's see if we can see anything here. Oh, there's our preview up here. Not sure what it is I'm supposed to be seeing there. Let us see if I can stop that preview. All right, now it wants to do an initial scan. I don't think I want to do that. So my concern, I guess briefly here, is I don't know if what I'm seeing is what I'm supposed to be seeing. So let's do this. We're going to take, we can see in the lower center here video, I have the camera set up. We're going to take a quick look here. I'm going to place my object on there. Now, one of the things I know, because I looked at it in advance, okay, we can see R2-D2. Some of those details are starting to come through. We can see we're not quite lined up. Let us see if we can line up a little bit better. So on the tripod, I am simply moving You can actually see it's starting to pick me up a little bit. I'm going to pivot it a bit. There we go. I want about... Okay, there we go. That's not bad. Okay, we're starting to see something now. All right. So I'm going to kind of just manipulate this a little bit. I want to turn it to get a nice angle. I want to be pretty much straight on to the turntable. There are some items that were included. Okay, let's go a little bit higher so I can see the top of my item. Okay. As far as I know, that is where we need to be, and it's starting to see things. Now, there are some instructions that came with the software, things like, you know, how to position the scanner, a certain distance, a certain height, and at a certain angle. So I've dialed those in before we started to the best of my ability. Obviously, it needed some adjustment to just kind of do that alignment. The goal being is we want to be able to actually see that it's picking up something on the scan bed, and we can see it also over here that it does appear to see the entire image. So with that, it's doing our preview. We're going to stop that. Now we're going to do an initial scan. So again, I don't want to say that it requires you got to do some reading. You got to do some reading. You got to kind of walk through the steps. And again, we could go back to our preview and we can adjust our brightness. We can see that okay, now we can start to see how the brightness is affecting it. Probably want to get somewhere where we can see it. Not too much red. Remember, even on the Einscan, red means that it's really bouncing a lot of that light. This would be a horrible scan. You can see in our preview, it's basically causing it to disappear. Let's go down 1, go down to 2. I think 3 is kind of where I want it to be. We'll stop that. And now it's time. The moment. Initial scan. Now remember, I'm going to actually let this one scan. I'm going to let it keep going because what I'm looking at here is this is just a turntable that consistently and constantly turns. It doesn't go in phases or steps. Where on the Einscan, we can set it anywhere from 8 to 20 steps, where it's scanning, capturing, and extrapolating that to create the 3D image. This one is kind of capturing, in theory, in real time. It's turning and trying to capture what it can, and we're going to let that run. Let's see how long that takes. Now, the Einscan, to do those 8 non-textured passes, it took a couple minutes. Let's see how long this takes before we get a result. Well, it looks like I already made one mistake in that the initial was really just an initial. It was spinning it and turning it and not actually scanning it. I was unaware and didn't realize that it was giving me an idea of what the scan would be, but not actually doing the final scan. With that being done and having seen how it turned and seemed to be picking up details, now let's actually go through the scan process. All right, so that scan took about 31 seconds, at least for the scanning. Now it should be doing the rendering, and we can see what our final product looks like. Let's start by just kind of doing a spin. Now, the areas in pink represent the areas that it should be cutting out. In other words, we don't want it to keep the base plate. And anything in this blue-gray color is what it should be keeping. I think what we will do here for the goal here is, I believe we can append it. We can look to make some changes. For today's purposes, I'm not going to do that. Today's purposes is one pass or one set of scans side by side. What are the results? How much work is needed or not needed? So we're going to go ahead and process this. We'll give it a name, call it R2, and let's see what the software does. Now, while this is going, I can point out that both pieces of software do allow you to export your items in STL, OBJ, and a few other file formats. So both support the most common formats, especially, for example, if you did want to do some post manipulation either in 3D CAD software or in a mesh mixer, you can do that with either piece of this software for either making corrections, changes, adjustments, whatever the case may be. So now as it's processing and saving the project, let's give it and see how long that takes. All right, we're going to go ahead and I guess say, sure, do the table scan to be processed. Let's apply. Now we're processing. So it's doing a fusion, removing noise, repairing, and simplifying. And let's see what we are left with. We will apply. It's asking me to save the OBJ. We'll give it a name. We'll just call it Fusion OBJ. Now it's exporting again. See what that looks like. And here, good. We have our final object. Let us go ahead and see if I can get this to turn in a way that we can. Oh, that's the back. That's not what I wanted. There we kind of. Nope, still the back. Okay. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Oh, not there. There. Okay. It was I'm going to say a little bit wonky trying to figure out how to get it to move in the 3D space. I'm not going to assume that that's anything other than I'm not used to it and familiar with it, but let us compare. And the easiest way to compare now is let us show these two items side by side. So now let us see our two items side by side. So on the right side, as I'm facing it, possibly the left side of your screen, we have the Einscan 8 passes non-textured. On the left, we have the lizard. I'm still having nothing but fun trying to manipulate this in a 3D space. Let me see if I can, if that's the front, let me see if I can do it using top. No, that's the bottom. Okay. Let's leave it there for a moment. So, I mean, I'm sure there are things we can there are some things here like texture mapping and other things we can do. Again, I don't want to get into that right now. That's not the point. The point is not whether or not I can take what has happened and turn it into something better. I mean, that could apply to either one of these. It's out of the box, initial setup, scan, what is my quality, right? Now, we know on both of these we would need to do some post items. We would need to either do multiple passes, especially on the Einscan. Let's look at the Einscan and we realize, yeah, it missed areas it couldn't see. I'm going to have to scan it from a couple different angles and then combine those different scans into a single three-dimensional. Looking at the lizard, I mean, I guess my tone is probably going to tell you I've got some concerns out the bat. I mean, let's just take a side view here. I mean, yes, we lost some details that it couldn't pick up on the Einscan, sure, but I don't even see those details. The amount of noise, the amount of where it couldn't pick things up, it just seems to have filled it in. I mean, I couldn't print this. Let's be honest. There's a lot of detail missing. Looking at the top, try to look at the top of the dome, which again is confusing how this works. It did kind of extrapolate and fill in what the top should look like. We did not get that, of course, with the Einscan. But let's be blunt. The quality of the details and textures are night and day. Night and day. I don't even know what I would do to start cleaning this up and manipulating this. So let's do one more. Let's do one item. I'm going to do it. We'll do it at least for this model. So we're going to take the Einscan, and we are going to fill in, have the software fill in what it thinks, what it couldn't scan. Right? Couldn't see the bottom. Let's see what it does when it tries to extrapolate. We'll do that by doing just a watertight. I'm going to do medium detail just for the sake of time. Let's just see that, okay, I scanned it. I don't feel like doing another pass. Maybe I don't need it. Software, I want you to go in and fill in anything you couldn't capture, and let's see what that final result looks like, just for real quick comparison. So it takes about 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, and here we have our final mesh. So as expected, didn't know what to do with the top, so we lost some detail. Scanning, we knew that the lens was an issue, and then of course underneath we can see, but didn't know what to do where the feet connected. But let's take a moment and realize that there's going to be some cleanup here. I'm going to have to cut off this extra garbage at the bottom. I'm going to have to fine tune a little bit down here, and I'm probably going to have to. I guess on the plus side, I can probably extrapolate one side and mirror it. But there, again, having done no other passes, no other details, no other cleanup, this gives us a good indicator of the detail. I'm going to go over to the lizard, and I want to see if I can dial in some settings here. I don't know what this simplified grid face does. I'm going to try that. It looks like it does nothing. Just moving it around. I'm trying to see. Oh, I guess if I want to, I can turn this around. Let's try dialing this number up. I don't know what it's going to do. Let's try processing that. Let's just see what happens. So to extrapolate and mesh, apparently I have no data to be processed, so I can't apply and I have to hit cancel. Let's just take a quick look at what else is in the software here. So I'm going to be, I'm going to be honest. I don't know exactly what I would do. I'm going to have to experiment with the various settings and see if there's others. So what I don't want to do is assume, because I'm not familiar with the software, that what I did is ultimately indicative of the best possible quality you could get from this device. However, that being said, the Einscan, this is what I got from the first setup. There was nothing other than plugging it in, running its initial calibration, and then hitting HDR, so I didn't worry about brightness, and then hitting scan. There were no other settings to dial in. There were no other things I needed to do to get this initial set of quality, whereas obviously there is, I'm hoping, a learning curve with the lizard where I would be able to dial in this quality even better. So with that, let us go ahead and go to our second item. So for our second item, we are going to be doing the really small miniature with super fine, high details, different colors, etc. For each of these, we are going to just go back to our scan in each piece of software and delete what we'd started. I'm going to, so we'll delete it on the Einscan. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place that on the center of the Einscan turntable. And I'm just going to hit, having changed no other settings, I've deleted R2-D2. I'm leaving the lighting, the HDR, the scanning, all is the same. I'm just going to hit play, let that one run. Now while that's scanning, I'm going to go over here and make sure I can figure out also how to, let's just go with, well, I'm going to actually try reset first. Okay, good. The reset brought us right back. That's convenient. I was afraid I was going to have to go through all the same settings as before. So what I want to do is, now I do see we have a table scan here. Okay, that's good to know. Here are our table scans, and I want to delete those. Just like I did with the R2-D2 on the Einscan side, we are going to go ahead and delete what we scanned on the Lizard side as well. So again, no other changes to settings. We're just going to go ahead and see how that works. Now on the Einscan side, if we quickly check in, we can see that it's about halfway through. Again, only doing 8 scans. If I was doing this for true quality, I would have upped that to probably 12. I would have upped that to probably 12 scans, just because there are, with a small item and a lot of different details, the more scans, the more detail you're going to ultimately capture from that object. Now again, also, it's going to miss some stuff because with the Einscan, where I found the best possible outcome is to do 1 scan at one angle and then flip it 45 to 90 degrees and do another complete set of scans. That's going to fill in any areas that it can't see based on the angle that it's looking at, because it's really just blasting that item with light and reading it back into the sensor. And if it can't see that light because it passes over it, it's obviously going to miss some of those details. I have other videos that talk more about that and how to get the best possible quality if you're doing a small 3D miniature scan. So let's take a look. So right now we can see that this particular scan came out pretty rough. It's missing a lot of details. Some of that could be just the angle underneath. Some of that could be the coloring. Again, we have, this is a painted, detailed miniature. Clearly it was having some challenges. Let's zoom in, see if we can zoom in just a little bit on that. Well, that's not cooperating quite as much, so let's see if I can do it with a shift. No. Oh, there we go. I figured it out. Took a while. All right. So, I mean, that's the honest. Not great. This one would have to be dialed in and adjusted. It got some of the details, but I'm not particularly thrilled with this. I've scanned miniatures on the Einscan, and I can tell you from my experience, more scans, a little bit more control over the lighting environment. But again, today's test was not about getting the best instant quality. It was about out of the box, side by side, what are we going to get? So the best way to do that now is to take the exact same model, place it on the Lizard turntable, and let us go over here. Let us preview. All right, we're definitely having some challenges seeing that. Let's try upping. Oh, a little bit better. Oh, it looks like I got to go full brightness. We're starting to pick up some details. Let's do the initial and see what that shows us. We're dead center, which is what we're supposed to be. We want to center on the object itself. We're at full brightness. I'm not really getting a sense that it's going to do much there. You know what? The only way to know for sure is let's give it a scan. Let's see what happens. Let's see what it's able to pick up. And one of the other reasons I really wanted to do this scan for this particular item is that it has a lot of different colors and reflective surfaces. Not all the surfaces are reflective, but there is some paint that is more reflective than others, and there are some black, which I knew the Einscan was going to have a challenge with. It really struggles sometimes with those reflective and black surfaces. Now remember, the Lizard touts itself, even if you go to their own website, that it works really good in highlight and black capture. Let's see if that plays through. Now again, it only took about 30 seconds for it to run that scan. Definitely shorter than the Einscan. Einscan on 8 passes takes about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So this was faster. Part of that is that it's capturing, trying to capture that data in real time. It's not capturing a set of images, capturing another set of measurements, and then using the software to extrapolate that. You can see as it's running, it's doing those little, I'm finding this, finding that, finding that, and it's trying to build that texture map as it goes, which is why it turns consistently. Let us see what we have here. Rotate. I don't know if I can zoom at this point. Let us, you know what, again, let us process and see what we're looking at. All right. We're going to apply. Fusion failed. I'm honestly not sure what that means. We'll hit OK. Looks like our processing didn't work. Maybe it's because I did need to reopen it as a different, and now I don't even see it. I don't know what happened to it. I don't want to append. Sorry, folks. That would be if I was doing a second pass, second set of scans. Want to fill in some more detail or try it from a different angle. I don't want to do that. To be perfectly honest, I'm having some... Now it just wants me to scan again. I really want to see... I want to stop this. So stop. And I don't want to append. I just want to go back to my scan. Let's try a line. No. Process. Can I go back to process? Show me. I'm not sure what happened. I will do my best to speed this up. Folks, I apologize, but I thought I could backtrack, delete what I'd scanned, and just scan something else. That does not appear to have worked, or I've done something wrong. So, I really want to be able to give you an opportunity to do a comparison. So I'm going to try this from scratch, and I'm just going to skip to the end. All right, well, that's the second time I've tried to redo my scan, and it also failed, gave me an error message. I don't know what that error message means, so we're going to go ahead and close out the software, see if we can relaunch it, and start from scratch again. All right, folks, third time in, and as soon as it hits this fusion piece, I'm getting this fusion failed. Please check the selected multi-frame data. I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest. I think that might be a result of it doesn't have enough data. It didn't pick up enough information on the scan itself. I think there might be only one way to test that and scan a different item. So that's a speculation at this point. I can't say that's for sure. I'll probably have to look up that error afterward and figure out what's going on. Let us go ahead and destroy that scan. Let's reset. And let's try a different item. And you know what? For this, because, I apologize that we couldn't get a side-by-side comparison for this particular model, but I think that actually might be telling in and of itself. The Einscan did not do a particularly great job. However, it doesn't look like the Lizard was even able to get enough data to give us something to work with. Again, speculation, but let's try a third item. I'm going to change the item. I originally was going to do the helmet, the mask. I'm going to change that to something where I think we have the best possible chance of getting really good quality. I'm going to use this printed gray Megatron figure that's about 3 inches tall. So a little bit larger, still has some good detail on it, but the fact that it's the matte gray means it should have the best possibility of us picking up those details. We'll confirm that by doing a quick scan on the Einscan. So let's do that first. So I set my object down. We can see it here in the preview window. I'm not changing any other settings. I am just going to hit play, and then we will fast forward and see what the result is. All right, our scan is complete on the Einscan. Let's take a look. So as I would have expected, it was able to capture a lot of those details. This is kind of what you would call almost the best case scenario. I have an object of a decent size. It's a uniform, non-reflective colored surface. We can see it got all these little details. If I zoom in even a little bit, right, the details in the leg, the etching. Let's turn around and see the back. Got a lot of those details of the back. Of course, the face. Let's check out the face. Right, looks like we got that face. We got some of the expression. Again, this is 8 passes under no dialed-in settings. Definitely gives us a flavor for what to expect. Overall, very good. Couldn't see a few areas. We would probably want to do a couple more passes to fill those in. But this is indicative of, with those other, with another pass, maybe adjusting the lighting just a little bit. I mean, we're going to be able to have something really solid to work with pretty quickly here. Let us compare now and try doing that on the lizard. So I've placed my product, so I've placed my object on the lizard. Looks like we're going to have to, oh. Yeah, he wobbled a little bit there. So that's something good to know is that he seems to be more stable. Now I'm going to adjust the camera because we're clearly not getting all of him. I've got to move it back just a little bit. I'm going to tilt it up. There we go. I think that should do it. All right. Now, so we're spinning. We are seeing him a lot better than the other object we were trying to scan, the other miniature. So that's a very good sign. I'm going to adjust the brightness a couple different ways. All right. I'm losing a good portion of his head on 2. At 3, I start to get the head and the upper torso. Let's see. 4. I think the problem with 4 is, I think 3 is probably the best I'm going to do. Because once I go 4, we can see a lot of that's filling in with red, which is usually indicative that it's going to have a challenge. I'm also noticing that he's wobbling a little bit, which is, you know, I don't want him to wobble while he's scanning. That'll really throw it off. Now, this is something that can even happen on the Einscan while it's turning, whether it's turning consistently or it's doing the partial turns. You know, if an object is not completely solid on its feet, then it might fall. I use a tiny little bit of modeling clay, stick it underneath that foot. Doesn't damage the model, doesn't damage the board. And just stick that on it. He should be nice and solid now, not wobble, etc. So we can see that it's picking up the outline of our item. We can see it should be seeing it. The various things that it's trying to scan. Let's stop that. Let's do our initial pass. That'll give us an indication of what it's picking up. All right, it's telling us yeah, see, it's hitting orange on some of this stuff, which is not a good sign. So we're going to go back. We're going to stop that. We're actually going to go back. I want to set our brightness down to 3. I'm going to actually go back to 1. I'm going to go to our preview. Then I'll go to our initial again. I'm still picking up a little bit. I mean, as I look at the outline here, this is what I expect to see, and it should be seeing the object and its details. No red, no the light is passing. So we're gonna, this should be ideal. Let us do our scan and see what happens. So the scan is complete. Looks like it's trying to build the object. I did notice on this one that there was a lot more going on than with that little miniature. It seemed to be picking up a lot more detail, filling in a lot more. I believe, and we'll see what the results are, I think that miniature was maybe potentially too small, and it just wasn't capturing enough data to actually build up the 3D rendering of that item. We'll find out in a moment if we get the same error message. This time it did look like it picked a lot of data. I really won't know. I mean, we see more of an object here, and I think it's time to process this and see what happens. All right, it's the moment of truth, folks. We are going to try to apply. All right away, Fusion is working. We didn't get that same error message. That's indicative to me. I didn't really start the software or anything at this point. I just removed the old scan and created the new one. I don't think there was enough data in that miniature for it to actually build a 3D render, which in itself is a little disappointing. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's apply our processing. I'll go ahead and save that. And here we have what it did. Folks, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just say, let's go ahead and give these guys about the same angle. What can I say? On one side we have the Einscan, on the other side we have the lizard. I'm just going to let this speak for itself for a moment. I don't even know what else there is to say at this. Obviously there is nothing to work with on from the Lizard scan that we did versus the Einscan. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna. So where does that leave us? Well, out of the box, side by side, same parameters. I think that there's something to be said for the Einscan versus the Lizard. Now, let's talk about a few things. First of all, spec wise, let's just compare the specs. So both the Lizard and the Einscan have a resolution of 0.1 millimeter. The resolution on the Lizard actually goes 0.1 to 0.2, so a little bit lower resolution. I don't know what the parameters are that it would pull to a 0.2 versus a 0.1. The Einscan is locked at 0.1. Both claim an accuracy of 0.05 millimeters. The frame rate is going to be a little bit different just based on the way the scanning is done. You got 10 frames per second on the Lizard, and the frame rate is actually going to be very different because it's capturing frames based on the number of turns. So it's a little bit different in just the way. So I don't think that's a fair one-to-one comparison. Both are USB 2.0 minimum, USB 3 preferred for data transfer. They use different types of capturing technology. The Lizard is going to use laser and an LED combination, where the Einscan is white, photo, and RGB, three colors that it blasts across that to try to capture those details. So it is a slightly different technology. Do they do color capture? Will they capture the outer texture in color? The Einscan will do that built in. The SP will do that built in out of the box. There's an upgrade kit, which we did not demonstrate today for the Lizard. And then, of course, there's price. Now, there's no getting over it. The price of the Lizard retails for about $800 without the color kit, whereas the Einscan is $2,300. There's no getting over that there is a significant difference in price. We talked about the setup, and like I said, the setup of the Einscan is pretty straightforward. It's not challenging doing the Lizard. I think the trade-off is, you notice, more than once I had to physically get up and adjust the camera and kind of change the focal point because it doesn't have a preset defined focal size, right? I had to adjust, based on the size of the object, I had to change the positioning. That is not something I've had to do with the Einscan. So I gave myself a little checklist here, right? And I wrote this before I even started the video thinking, well, what are the things that I am looking at in either piece of software that, kind of give it a high mark, a moderate, or a low. So I'm just going to hit these in order. So texture. Well, we've already talked a lot about the texture and the capabilities. And because we did not specifically go through the process of color texturing in Lizard, it's not fair for me to give it a mark, except that it would require, after all we've already done, to also go in and do the capturing and processing of the texture. That is not something I would have to do with the Einscan. So I can't tell you what the quality would be. I would just tell you it's not worth my time to go through all those added steps to get something I know I can get out of the box right away in the software, no other setup with the Einscan. Reflective capture, well, it's hard because my goal here was to kind of put the Lizard to the test for what it claims to be able to do. We know the Einscan from demonstration has issues with reflective surfaces. I have not been able to get enough quality in general out of Lizard to say that it did any better or worse, which I guess by definition means worse, because I couldn't even get to that point. Same thing with the black capability. The Einscan definitely has challenges. Really wasn't able to get a good enough quality scan to see if it was picking up the black better. Now, I could scan just a black object. I could say, let me throw a black object on each thing and see if it even picks it up. That's not really the point. I want detail. I want quality. And at this point, again, it's kind of a fail for the Lizard because I wasn't able to get far enough into the quality to even see if it was able to pick up the black or other colors better or worse than the Einscan. This is a funny one. Post-scan corrections. When I'm done scanning, how much work do I feel is necessary to create a finished product? Well, if we use Megatron as a good example, yes, I'm going to have to do some work. I'm going to have to fill in. I'm going to have to, I can have the software right now. Let's go ahead and just say software, fill this in. Fill this whole thing in for me. And let's see what we're looking at. This is the best example I have found. That if I do one pass, maybe two, if it's a larger object or a lot of details that it couldn't capture, and then I want the software to just fill in the rest. Look at what I have and fill in the rest. That gives me a really good indication. Am I going to spend a lot of time cleaning this thing up? A little bit of time? No time. And I think within a few seconds here, we'll get a feeling for this item. So let's take a look. So I'm going to spin this around just slowly. What do we notice? I got a little bit of cleanup here. It made a little bit of a connection between the hand and the arm cannon. We spin this around, maybe a little bit in the waist section. We can see that. Let's go ahead and zoom in. We can see the waist section, maybe a little bit of cleanup detailing. Let's go ahead and turn it around. The face looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of fine-tuning touch-up. Again, as expected, the feet always want to fill in, so that filled in. But look at all those areas it didn't scan before. Some of the underside areas. If I scroll underneath here, and how well the software extrapolated and filled that in, folks. I'm not gonna lie, and like I said, I don't get paid endorsements. This, other than some corrections, is really good. I mean, I would be really happy with this if I was using this to build a model. I'd be happy with this. And I scanned it one time, 8 passes, filled it in using the software. Everything done right within the software, a couple clicks. First of all, I don't have enough to work with on the lizard to even attempt that. My other challenge is, and I won't lie, yes, every piece of software has a bit of a learning curve. I am finding that this software in particular, leaves a lot to be desired. Maybe it has capabilities, but part of it is if I have to work that hard and learn that much just to get a basic scan out of something, that's a bit of a turnoff for me. So post-scan correction, we're going to say low to medium on the Einscan just for today, what we scanned today. And it's saying 0, no possibility. There's not enough for me to work with. Even the first scan we did of R2-D2, there was such a loss of detail, and the software just did not do a great job of kind of understanding and filling in some of those other gap areas. It just kind of made it very muddy, very, very murky. So let's get into the gut. What does my gut tell me? Yes, I have been using the Einscan for a couple years, but I bought the Einscan a couple years ago because of the feedback and use cases. I really wanted the lizard to live up to my expectations. This was not a case where I bought it expecting it not to be good. I wanted it to be excellent. I wanted a more cost-efficient, even more portable solution to my Einscan. I don't believe we have that. Now, there are other videos out on YouTube, and I absolutely say go check them out as far as how does the lizard perform outside? How does it do with handheld and other use cases? And that it might blow things away at that price, right? It might do awesome at that price. But that's not what I want my scanner for. My scanner is to scan and create replacement and replica, fine detailed, small objects. Does the lizard quickly, out of the box, deliver on that for me? And I have to say, for now, the answer is no. Now, if you've had other experiences, first of all, if you have a lizard and you've used it and you have different experiences, please feel free to share those with me. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'd love to know if my experience is shared by you or you've had a very different experience. If you have feedback, maybe there's something clearly I'm overlooking. Then of course I'd love to hear that, and I will absolutely give the lizard another run for its money to see if it can live up. But for today's purposes of comparing setup, software, scan, and go, honestly, with the amount of work and time that I'm going to have to put into probably dialing in and figuring out the lizard just to see if it will give me the same quality, I am already getting out of the box with my Einscan. So if you ask me, is the Einscan still the choice I would choose? The answer, probably you're guessing, is definitively yes. From my own experience, from being able to use it, from saving myself time, and yes, it is $2,300, but I use it for business. I use it to create parts. I use it to scan items. The less time I am doing that, the more time I am adding and selling variety of products for folks. So for me, it is worth that investment because I'm saving so much time. If you're looking at it more from a hobby, you're willing to invest the time to see and dial in or adjust the lizard, assuming it can get to that level, then that's great. And I would say at that price, it's not necessarily a bad starter investment, but I can't personally endorse it for the purposes that I have described today. As you can see, it just doesn't quite live up to, it flatly did not live up to my expectations of what it should and could have been capable to do based on the specs and what it was described as being capable of. So, of course, I welcome your feedback. Please let me know what you think of this video. If you like this video, I have others like it, especially more on the Einscan SP. Please feel free to leave your comments. Go ahead and click subscribe if you want to see this and our other videos. I'm Dave Floss for Prometheus Falling Toys. I thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great day.